Hey, everybody.
What's up? I didn't hide this time. I'm here.
He didn't hide this time. Welcome to Late Night Snacks.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
We are back to give you another episode of
My
My
Roanoke
Roanoke Nightmare.
3 days in hell.
3
Post
Days
show.
in Hell.
Post show. Whatever.
This is episode. This is our part 2 of our WTF moments.
Kind of.
And we are
WTF kind of
doing
review.
WTF of 6 through 10.
Correct. Who had the first part?
And of course,
Huh?
Melly has the first part.
Mel will be joining us in just a moment. We're just kind of killing it. We're kind of.
Melly has the first part. She will be here soon. However, we're still going to do our introductions and whatnot.
Hello, I'm that guy.
I am DeWanda. It's good to see you guys. We're glad you're here.
Naked Harry.
And
He's
yes,
here
Naked Harry is here making his
debut
entrance again. No, he already made his debut
he did
a long
his debut.
time ago.
Announcements, house cleaning bits. We will probably most likely be streaming tomorrow night late. So if you want to join us for a real true late night snacks.
Oh yeah.
We're going to be doing a pre-show for a watch party for Hamilton. So if you're a Hamilton fan out there, if you're tuning in tomorrow night at midnight at the drop of Hamilton, I know Don and I are super excited. Huge obsessed fans.
Huge.
So pre-show is going to be fun. We're just going to be talking about the show a little bit and what we like, what we don't like, what we're excited for. We will not stream during the show. It's going to be hard enough to watch and be excited about it. And
I want to be able to watch it and enjoy it. I don't want
it's not something to stream and do like a live broadcast with because you need to pay attention to the words, to the lyrics, to what's going on. And it's also Disney, and I don't want to fuck with Disney.
We don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, so we will be doing a show and pre-show, and then sometime next week, probably soon, around the weekend-ish time, we'll probably be doing a review. We'll do a review. We'll do a recap show for Hamilton. So if you have Disney Plus, it airs tomorrow at midnight Pacific time, 3 a.m. Eastern time on Disney Plus.
Yes.
And it is the actual Broadway cast doing the Broadway show. It was filmed in 2016.
Yes, it's the original Broadway cast.
Yeah, so it's as if you had tickets to the Broadway show when the original Broadway cast was there, Lynn and Leslie Jordan, etc. So there we go. Leslie Odom, not Leslie Jordan. Lord. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm stoked. I can't wait.
Yeah, and the other thing we wanted to bring up is that we are still hosting a fundraiser for the Trevor Project.
Yes, we are.
For Pride Month. And that is still going, will still be going on until the 10th of July.
Correct. Even though Pride Month is officially June, still a lot of Pride's going on. San Diego's Pride is always in July, actually. We're the last of Southern California. So even though Prides are not happening as far as traditional Prides, but we're still going to carry on through July.
We are trying to raise $333.
And we are at?
And we are currently at 200.
200, so a little more than halfway there.
We have the link is listed in the description below the video if anyone wants to contribute. Even $1 goes a long way. It doesn't matter how much. Every little bit counts.
Sure. Yep.
So just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention in case they wanted to contribute to what we're doing.
Absolutely.
And let's see, do we want to talk about anything else today?
So we have not discussed or decided on next week's agenda, so stay tuned for those announcements. The only thing that's locked in right now is we're continuing on with RuPaul on Fridays, doing the show right after the show with All Stars. And like I said, we'll be doing the Hamilton stuff this weekend. Do you want us? We have some plans to cover Cult. We have a special way where we want to cover Cult. It's like we have a special way that we've been covering everything else.
Right.
It will be like Roanoke. It will be a short coverage of Cult, and a short coverage of Apocalypse, and then we'll see what we're going to do about 1984.
Mm-hmm.
So, stay tuned for that. Ideas, questions.
Alrighty, there she is.
And here's Melanie finally.
There she is.
Well, as soon as I told you my phone was going to die, it died. So I had to wait.
Yeah.
I had to plug it up and wait for it to charge to 1% so I could turn it on.
So here she is. So yes, Irish Melly is now in the house.
Hey.
You just missed an announcement.
Obviously, we started without you, but it's okay because you're here.
It happens.
We just did house cleaning announcements. We'll fill you in there.
We just did all of that. So
Gotcha. We did our introductions.
Yes.
Okay. So we have told everybody what we're talking about today.
Yes, we did.
All right. So we are doing episodes 6 through 10. I will get you guys started with episode 6.
Yep.
Oh, see, Debbie just got here too. She didn't miss nothing, Debbie. We're starting now because I'm late. All right. So, let's see. So right when we open episode 6, we are now entering Return to Roanoke, 3 Days in Hell. The first thing is they decide to film with everyone unaware that they're adding in computer-generated sounds and moving objects like drawers popping open, the sink squirting out, the exploding windows. They pump in smells like sulfur. I'm like, God, they're really trying to get in these people's heads.
Yeah, I love the whole meeting in the beginning because they really explain what is supposedly we know differently from the show. What a sham the whole thing was. It was supposed to be, the little setup just to get ratings and stuff. We know differently now, but that's what these reality shows and stuff do all the time.
All the time. So then we see behind a tree. We see right afterwards. We see a circle of dead baby pigs in a circle. And then we cut to Sydney sitting doing an interview with Agnes as Agnes. And this is when we get a little bit of backstory on what happened to Agnes after the filming of My Roanoke Nightmare. We see Agnes in Hollywood dressed as the butcher, but with her hair, with the Agnes hair. She didn't have the butcher hair on. And she's just slashing at people with a meat cleaver, like a real life meat cleaver. And she's just spouting out butcher spew, They took me land. This is me land. I shall consecrate it with the blood. She's snapping off. She said, "This is."
And aside from she really did that in Hollywood.
And then we find out she's institutionalized for 6 months after this incident.
Yeah.
And then she finds out that she's not welcome back on set. That they then hand her a restraining order. And she begins shouting at them as the butcher. She just got done telling them, "I'm fine. I'm nothing. I'm cured now. Everything is fine." As soon as they say you can't come on set, she's the butcher again. So, so much for that institutionalization working,
and the fact that her medication has been, regulated and whatnot.
Yeah, right. That was her whole thing, and she just. Bam! A whole nother.
It's just so interesting that Kathy Bates is playing this character because Kathy Bates is so
just going to say that. I love that it's Kathy because I could picture her really doing this on set and like freaking people out and confusing people because they're like, "Wait, Kathy," and you're like, "No, I'm Agnes or I'm the butcher."
She stays in character the whole time.
And that's what I said before. Can you guys imagine being in Hollywood and just seeing Kathy Bates walking down? Covered in blood, just slashing at people down Hollywood. You're just kind of there as a tourist, and you're like, "WTF? What is going on?"
Yep.
So then the next thing we see is a man cutting a tree stump, and we see the chainsaw go up, and he's decapitated completely by the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Producer Diana decides after that she's done. She's not doing this anymore, that this place is bad news. Bad things are going to happen. She gets in her car to leave. She says she's done with the show. And then she begins filming herself in her car as she's driving away because she said she wants the real story of what's happening. She doesn't want this bullshit, which is a common theme that we will see with people recording as they're doing their own recordings. People keep saying, "I want the real story. I want the real story put out." So then as she sees the colonial ghost, which I'm assuming was Priscilla, because we've seen Priscilla a few times and it looked very much like her. They never say that, but it very much looked like her. And that kind of catches her attention off guard. And she says, I'm not doing this. She's like, I don't know who that is. I'm not stopping for them. Right. And then right then when she turns her head back to look at the road, you see the piggy man behind her and he grabs her.
And what's so interesting about this whole setup, it plays with your mind as an audience, because this is what I think was so brilliant about Ryan doing it this way, is we look at Sarah Paulson, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Angela Bassett as the people who have gone through this experience, but they haven't. They didn't see any of these ghosts. They didn't experience any of this. It was the other cast, the other, Lily and them actually experienced this. So it's such a mind fuck watching this happen and their reaction to everything.
Yeah.
And then she crashes her car and she dies. We see her body upside down, mangled. But then we're told that then there's a flash on the screen with some text that tells us that her footage was found 3 months later, but her body was never recovered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now right after that, we jump into the first actors making it to the house, which is Audrey and Rory. And let me just say, my next note says WTF, Evan's fire red hair and Sarah's horrible accent.
Horrible.
I mean, he looked like he dyed his hair with a Kool-Aid packet. It wasn't even like some dye from the store. Yeah. It's some old school Kool-Aid dye that we used to do.
Horrible.
Mm-hmm. And then Agnes shows up and she busts out a window. As Lee walks down the hall, we see Mason burnt and disfigured behind her. She turns to look back again real quick and it's gone. It's not there. Audrey gets out of the shower and sees the piggy man. She starts screaming and yelling. Rory then goes upstairs because they're convinced that Sydney has sent some actor to scare them and to, get these authentic scares and reactions from them. So Rory goes up there looking around and he's like, come out, you motherfucker. Where are you? Where are you at? I know you're hiding. And he opens the closet, nothing. And he sees the other one and he listens and he thinks he hears something. So he opens it real quick. Nothing. We just see clothes. And then all of a sudden he shuts the cabinet and bam, right there is the two nurses. And they just start, they cut his throat and they just start stabbing him repeatedly over and over as he falls to the ground. Matt uses his phone to see that the word, because when they're looking for Rory, they find the pile of the pool of blood and everything. And Matt uses his phone to see I said that Matt uses his phone because at first we're led to believe that he can only see it through his phone looking at the wall. But that's just because he wants to get it on camera, because we see the other people seeing it afterwards.
Yeah. Their phones are the cameras. They are the cameras.
Exactly. And we see that the word Murdy, M-U-R-D-E, now has the final R in it. And Matt tells them R is for Rory.
R stands for Rory. Yep.
Right. And that's how we end episode 6. So then we open on episode 7. We see Alyssa of the filming crew. We see that they come in and they meet. They have this interaction, but then she leaves the trailer with Sydney and the cameraman inside. And then we see her. They come out because they hear screams. They come out and they see that her throat's cut and it's just gushing blood, just gushing, oozing. I mean, so much more gratuitous than even American Horror Story normally does with all of these. And it seems like everybody's either decapitated, their throat slit, or they're disemboweled.
They're disemboweled, yep.
Exactly.
Dismembered.
Right. Then we see Agnes come out and she slams a meat cleaver into Sydney, right into his stomach. We see the cameraman begin to run, and then he's cut in his back and hacked repeatedly over and over again. We don't see it, but we hear it, and we see his camera angle shaking. We then see a bloody Agnes up close in the camera, and she says, "I am the tree and the lightning that strikes it." Crazy. This bitch is crazy. But if anybody was born to do it, like we said, Kathy, she was born for this role.
Yeah.
We then see Agnes talking into the camera by torchlight in the bunker. She's going back and forth from herself to Thomason. It's almost like there's a struggle in her head. There's two voices going on, but we're verbally hearing them come out. And then she's crying about killing the girl because she had a baby, and she seems remorseful. But then she says, "No, but they took my land, and I have to consecrate with ye blood." And she's snapping again. Her torch goes out, and then she begins to relight it. When she relights it, she realizes she's surrounded by these stick figure dolls inside the bunker, and she begins to scream. Shelby goes to her room to cry, have a nice cry, because, you know, her and Matt are going through their thing. Yes, I can totally understand that, Debbie. I totally can. It's a very gratuitous, and it's a hard to watch season. It really is.
Yeah.
But then we see Shelby go up to the bedroom crying, and then she notices the camera sitting on her bed, but it's not like one of the cameras that they have mounted in the house. It's not one of their phone cameras. This is an actual cameraman's camera sitting on her bed, and it has blood on it. So now when she walks up to it to investigate and kind of look at it, Agnes comes up from behind her, and she slices into chases around the room, and then slices into Shelby's shoulder as she's trying to get out of the room. She falls to the floor, and again, gushing blood, just gushing. Dominic shows up and slams Agnes's head into the large mirror that's in the room, and he turns around after a minute to get some bandages for Shelby, and Agnes is gone. So this woman is pretty damn resilient too.
Yeah.
For not being a supernatural figure, you know what I mean?
Yep. And not having any contact with the supernatural yet.
Exactly. And then Audrey, Lee, and Monet decide to leave to go for help to see if they can go get to the crew trailers.
Wrong choice.
Bad choice.
And, well, first thing they do is they're like, you know, we don't, because they're just under the impression that just crazy Agnes is out here starting stuff. They haven't even hit the paranormal stuff yet.
No.
Yeah.
So they decide, you know, Audrey tells them, remember, there is a secret way out. She won't see us. And they decide to take that tunnel that's under the house that we know through the reenactment previously, Edward Mott had shown Shelby and Matt was there. And then we see someone standing at the end of the hall, and it looks like Rory dressed in his Edward Mott costume. And so Audrey's calling out to him because, again, at this point, Rory's missing. And she thinks, okay, he's messing with us now. When all of a sudden we hear this, just like, I don't even know what he screams, but it's like a growl scream.
Yeah. It's like evil vocalized.
Yeah, and it's almost like some animal out in the woods being tortured or something. So then they see him at the end of the tunnel. He screams. Lee shoots at him 4 times. He gets back. He falls down. He gets right back up. And he screams at them again, and then begins to chase them. And you hear Lee say, "Run!" And they start running back the other way, and they run out into the woods. Then they decide to go walking through the woods, you know, to try and find this before they lose daylight. Well, then we see they're losing daylight because they look up and they see the blood moon is up in the sky. Audrey begins to leave a message on her recorded camera phone for Rory, while she's crying, just telling him, "I love you. You know, I'm always here," and I blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden we see blood start dripping down her face. Monet turns to her and says, "You're bleeding. Are you okay?" And she goes like this. And then they look up and we see Rory hanging in the tree, completely disemboweled.
Yeah. Gross.
Yep.
Yeah. It was gross. And then they see lights. They go to hide. And the Polk boys find Audrey and Lee. And they walk up and shock them with a cattle prod.
Yeah.
They then find Monet, and they do the same to her, and they take all 3 girls. Agnes is back at the bunker now, and she's basically doing surgery to herself. She's cauterizing some tools and trying to cauterize the wound while pulling the bullet out. And she's screaming while she does this and crying, and then back and forth with her whole butcher routine again. And then we go back into the house. Matt's now laying in bed with Shelby because Shelby's all bandaged and messed up, and he's laying with her, which is what Shelby wanted all along. we find out Matt did not, because Matt gets out of bed almost looking as if he's possessed, just completely in a trance. And he walks down to the basement. And we hear screeching and snarling. And then Dominic goes and follows him and sees what's going on. And he goes to get Shelby and brings Shelby to the basement. Shelby then sees Matt having sex with Scavenge.
The real Scavenge.
The real Scavenge.
Scavenge.
Not the pretty Lady Gaga one.
No.
And then Shelby beats her with a crowbar and she kind of takes off. And then Matt tells her basically, what are you doing? Like, I came back for her. I love her. This sets Shelby off. Shelby begins to repeatedly scream and bash Matt's head in with the crowbar. She hits him, I counted 11 times before Dominic stops her.
Yeah, he just stood there.
Right. He did. He just stood there. He was right next to her, and he waited till after his head was completely smashed. Because remember, at this point, Dominic has already told us he's wearing the hidden body cam. He wants to be the secret bad guy. Yeah. He wants to make everybody mad. He's a dickhead. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just see they pan down and we see Matt's skull just utterly destroyed. Like pulp. I mean, there's just pulp and brain matter
left. It was just
And just a side note, when Dominic takes Shelby upstairs to try and calm her down, he begins to tell her she needs to turn herself in. He's like, I tried to stop you, but you were just in a rage. You were unstoppable. And I'm thinking, no, you didn't. You let her hit him 11 times before you stopped her.
And he got it all on camera.
Right.
And he deliberately took her down there.
Yes, he did. So that was a big WTF moment right there in another WTF moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then we see the Polks. We're back at the Polks, and they tie Lee to a chair. Mama Polk comes in and tells her to rub what I thought at first was moonshine, because it's in like one of the moonshine jugs. But before she puts, she has her rub it all into her leg, and she says, get every inch. And then she puts spices on her legs, and she says, you know, the key to good meat is tenderizing. And then she stabs her in the leg with the barbecue fork. And she mentions that it's peanut oil.
Yeah.
So it's peanut oil, not moonshine, but it's in a moonshine jug. And it wouldn't surprise me if these Polks with their weed enterprise have moonshine enterprise as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So then we see Dominic. We're back at the house. Dominic looks outside and sees Agnes starting to light the house on fire. She's putting gasoline everywhere. She's got her torch outside and she's yelling at them, telling them they will burn. They will burn. Then we go back to the Polks and we see Mama Polk bring a plate of meat to Audrey and Monet and just toss it at them and tells them to eat up. And what do they say? They say she's not going to last forever, or she's not going to be good forever or something. Yeah. And I didn't think it clicked right then to them. They're just like, why is she forcing us to eat something? And it was just the words that she used. She told them right then and there.
It wasn't even.
Well, and then Audrey, you know, then how long have they been in there? Long enough for them to do all the stuff they did to Lee. Yeah. Because then Audrey goes, wait, where's Lee? Like, you just now thinking, where's Lee? You know, there was 3 of you. And so that's when she starts to put it together.
Yeah, and listen to their simultaneous scenes. They're going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And they start cattle prodding them to force them to eat the meat. Monet does it, and Audrey's like, Monet, don't do it, don't do it. And they just keep cattle prodding Audrey until she does it. And then we hear them gagging and, you know, throwing up.
The stew is stew.
We see a large group with torches come up behind Agnes back at the house. Agnes comes face to face finally with the real butcher, and she knows it. She knows it when she sees it. So I don't know if this is because Agnes is out of her mind, or if Agnes, because none of the actors seem to really believe or know that there was really spirits here.
Yeah.
So, but she seemed like she wasn't surprised by it. Like she knew she was going to be coming. Like she was enthralled. She's like, my idol, you know.
It's like her God. She believes in her God. You know.
Exactly. And then the butcher takes the meat cleaver and bam, slices it right through her head, which I have a picture of that scene with Kathy Bates behind the scene makeup. Just, oh my God, half her face like this. Oh, it's great. Those special effects were amazing. Yeah. The effects team on American Horror Story is just phenomenal.
Mostly practical.
Yeah, and then that's how the episode ends, with Agnes getting meat cleavered through the head.
I think it's what the fuck moments in these first couple episodes of Return to Roanoke is the Polks are so, because when we had My Roanoke Nightmare, the Polks were almost cartoony in a sense that they're just like, oh, these hit
Because
cartoony
it was
and
the actor.
yes, and then you get into this and there is nothing funny about it. It's like,
Uh-uh.
holy shit, this is
Absolutely
so
nothing
intense. And that's where the show got really intense for me. It was like
And
really,
that's why I kind of like, because I know we had mentioned yesterday about how it would have been great if Frances Conroy had been the real Mama Polk.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would have been as disturbing to us if she was, because we know Frances Conroy. These other actors, we don't know them. Oh, the only actor that we know that played a real person was Finn Whitrock as Jethro Polk, and you couldn't even recognize him.
Oh, no.
Nope.
Make a fake soup can label. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the Polks are the scariest thing in American Horror Story for me.
So then that's, like I said, that's how we end episode 7. So then we jump into 8.
Yeah, so we jump into 8. And 8 starts obviously with Dominic looking out the window.
And this is where they're seeing her get sliced up.
He sees her get her face sliced in half by the butcher. And I have to say that Dominic is a total drama queen. Oh my God.
Suddenly it's real. He didn't give a shit before. Suddenly it's real, and he's a big freaking drama
And all
queen.
he's doing is just screaming and whining and bitching, and oh my God, it's like, can someone just slap him across the face?
Shelby's still freaking out, but she's not acting the way he is. When she's lived through this, she just got cleavered in the shoulder. She just beat the hell out of her husband, beat him to a pulp.
Audrey and Monet too. Audrey and Monet are acting.
I wrote it down. It's like Dominic's being a whiny bitch, which is true because he's being a whiny bitch.
Yeah, he basically is already being a bitch. Now he's just being a whiny bitch.
And now the whole time he's just being a whiny bitch because all he wants is, I only did this because, I was supposed to get a spin-off and I've got to do this and I got to do that and someone needs to save me and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, shut up already. No one cares.
You can mind being the bad guy, but you don't want to be the savior.
No. So, he's whining and sniveling and basically, Shelby has to get up and because he's like, well, what do we do? And so on and so forth. And she's like, we have to go to the tunnel. So they end up going downstairs through the tunnel, and she's freaking out because she's got to step over her husband's body, of which she just beat the living shit out of him.
Right.
And as they're going down the tunnel, they run into the Chens again. The Chens freak me out.
The real Chens are brutal.
Chens.
They're the creepiest out of all the spirits for me.
They are the creepiest of all of it.
Yeah, the real Chens have like really distorted mess. It's like their heads are on upside down. Oh, it's weird.
Yeah, they're like
the one of the ladies who plays the older daughter, Chen, she is actually a stunt woman, but she's a contortionist. So she actually did the contortioning to walk like that and do those things.
Ugh. It just gives me the creeps. So they get chased out of the tunnels by the Chens and end up going back to the house. And then, so as they're getting chased, we get cut back to the Polk farm. And this is where we get to see Lee's tied up to the chair. And now we get to see the real Polks, obviously. We started to see the real Polks in the last episode, but now we get to see more of them. And this is after they've tenderized the leg and she's totally out of it. They're talking to her like she's an it, not a person.
Yeah.
And she's trying
to them she is.
Yeah, and they end up basically carving pieces out of her leg, and you actually see it. It's just like the most disgusting thing ever.
It's brutal.
It's just so brutal. And they tell the story of how it came about that they started doing this, and it turns out that they were people that ate their last pig as a feast. So the Polks ended up catching the people, and this
is when we get the backstory on the Piggy Man too, right?
Yeah. Backstory on the Piggy Man too, but they ended up eating the people because, as far as the Polks were concerned, there's only one family, they have to take care of themselves, so they're going to eat whatever they're going to eat. It's like, no, you're on our land and you will not interrupt our crops, so we're going to eat you. You eat our last pig, we're going to eat you. So that's where the whole thing started. What is it? Jethro basically says the Polks are the first family.
Yeah.
And the only.
And the only family, because they keep inbreeding.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. And so then Jethro sits down and starts carving a piece out of Lee's leg while she's still awake. So she's screaming bloody murder during this whole thing. And that's when we get the background on Kincaid Polk. He's the one who turned into the Piggy Man. Because he used to.
And the interesting fact when we find out about him, because that was the World's Fair, is where they tell the story about him. Well, the World's Fair is actually when H.H. Holmes built the murder castle to attract more people because of the World's Fair, so he'd have more victims. So there was a nice little tie-in there too.
And the World's Fair was in the 1900s. And basically what happened was Kincaid Polk used to take the pigs to slaughter. Mm-hmm. And he basically would wear a pig mask and kill all the people from the fair. And he ended up being sacrificed, and it turned him into a legend. So that's why he ended up being the Piggy Man.
Well, and didn't they say too that he fell into the trough with the pigs?
Yeah, and they ate him.
They ate him?
Mm-hmm.
So sounds so loud.
Yeah, isn't that exciting? So that's where the Piggy Man came from. Let's see. And they say that fear and aggression gave the jerky a delicious tang. That's why they would torture their victims as their.
Which is so funny, because if you talk to any hunter, they'll tell you the complete opposite. That's why they try to sneak up on their prey rather than let them see and torture it. They try to kill it right away, because otherwise they say it spoils the meat.
Right.
They're just not smart.
But it's the Polks. They're nuts.
No, they're not smart.
They like the taste of fear.
So after all of that, Shelby and Dominic end up back in the house again, because they leave the tunnel. They end up right back where they started.
Oh yeah, because the Chens chased them back.
The Chens chased them back. They end up right back where they started, which was hilarious. And you have Shelby on the floor. The interesting thing is that as they're in the house and getting ready to go up the stairs, the chandelier falls on Shelby and she breaks her foot.
I know, just one thing after another to Shelby, right?
One thing after another. So he drags her up the stairs. She's back in the bathroom, and she's like a combination of laughing and crying at the same time, because there they are, they're right back where they started.
Yeah, she's losing her mind. She's pulling an Agnes.
She's gone by this point, because she just thinks this whole thing is hilarious. So then they cut back to Lee, and Lee wants to talk to her daughter. So this is where she ends up confessing to the murder of Mason on the tape, and we find out that she actually did it.
Well, jury's still up in the air about that one. It's they want you to believe that she did it, and there's but there's always that question in the back of the mind, because the jury according to her are doing it. Maybe she didn't do it all. Maybe she just hit him with a rock. We don't know.
Well, yeah, because she keeps talking about, telling everybody from the get-go. She's like, I didn't do this. And she told me, nay, that's how you played me. That's the story you told.
Mm-hmm. And then they said that she confessed to get the Polks off of her.
Right.
And that's what we find out she uses later. But I think she's full of crap. I think she did it.
I know, because she also after all this, she also seduces Jether so she can escape. Then she knocks him out. And
doesn't she tell me can touch her boobies?
Yeah, something like that. And so she knocks him out, and right after that, the real Mama Polk, she basically manages to escape from Jether.
Yeah, they killed Mama Polk.
Yeah. And
killed my mama.
No, actually, she didn't kill her. Audrey did.
Audrey killed her later.
Audrey killed her. Audrey killed her, basically bashed her head in with a hammer.
Yeah, with the
Oh, yeah.
hammer. That was after they took the teeth, so we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, we haven't got there yet. So let's see, where am I at?
So Lee escaped, and then we're back. Isn't that then when we see the teeth scene?
Yeah, that's when we see the teeth. This is when they start pulling the teeth out.
Oh,
Because,
God, that's the worst.
because they were making the necklaces and one of them broke.
And was this the explanation for raining
back
teeth?
to our teaser.
Yes, now we're back to our teaser.
Now, what explanation did we get for the raining teeth?
That it was
We didn't.
props.
We didn't.
Huh?
We didn't get an explanation. They had just asked her. They had just asked where did you guys get the teeth for the show? And they said no, it's props. That's where we got. It doesn't just.
Yeah, okay.
rain teeth.
So it was a show thing. It was a show thing. Yeah. Okay.
And of course, the Polks thought it was a gift from the others because it was the only thing that didn't burn.
Yeah.
When all the other families burned, because in let's see, where am I? 8. There's 8. Yeah, because 9 is all about the bloggers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the biggest WTF moment was when they find the body in the car.
Yeah,
and
that
then,
was the biggest one from.
And then their death, but I don't think is their death at the end of 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at the end.
The finale.
A lot of it is, the bloggers are just, because now we're on episode 9, and the bloggers are they're trying to walk toward the house and they're taking pictures and doing all that stuff.
They're talking about the legend and the blood moon.
And they come
Very,
across,
very rich.
and they come across Diana, who is like just wandering around in the woods, and they don't realize she's dead, so they try and follow her around, and they find her in the car, totally freak out because all they see is the body.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would freak out too. And of course they didn't stay there because when the police went back, there was no body.
Yeah.
And they're trying to talk to the police, and the police don't believe them, of course, because that's the way it all works.
No, that's just this police force in this town.
Yeah, the police force in this town has all been bought by the Polks. So
But they were also, the
Polks.
police also mentioned how they're tired of all these YouTube people and these internet people coming out here and everything since the My Roanoke Nightmare film.
Yeah.
Which is very realistic. That would really happen.
Yeah, that would.
Because then
Hell, that really happened to the murder house after it
Yeah.
filmed and everybody kept visiting and the people got mad that moved in that supposedly knew nothing about it. BS, they wanted more money.
Oops.
Mhm.
Sorry, I hit the button there.
I was like, I already read that one.
Sorry, I hit the button on accident. But yeah, the bloggers, the major thing that happened in this episode was when the settlers actually captured them and burned them alive.
And yes, real quick, Debbie says that the Chens were very much like Asian horror ghosts. And yes, you're totally right. And that's why it freaks me out, because that is the one type of horror that freaks me the frick out is Asian horror, but especially Japanese horror.
Yes.
And then Debbie said that she would have really liked to see the real Piggy Man, Kincaid Folk. And she said, "Hey, great idea for an episode of the New American Horror Stories."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I wouldn't mind that.
That was.
I wouldn't mind those spin-off backstories.
But yeah, that was the major WTF of episode 9 is the fact that
you also have the end where everybody's killed.
Everybody's killed except for Audrey. Audrey's alive, and
Audrey and Lee.
And then Lee comes out of the basic trance, and she walks up towards her, and Audrey tries to get a gun, and they shoot her
from the police. Yeah, she tries to take the gun from the policeman's holster.
So Lee ends up being the only survivor of the whole thing.
And Audrey knew of Lee's confession.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Lee's big thing is she kept going back because she wanted to get her tape where she confessed.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly. That's what she wanted to go back to the book. Yep.
And now, Michael, you get to handle the finale.
So 10 is fun. One of the best episodes of American Horror Story ever because of the way it's done. It's basically like the whole theme of this entire season wrapped up in one episode. We have multiple shows going left and right all over the place. The first one is a tribute to Paley Fest because remember they used to every year the cast of American Horror Story used to show up at Paley Fest and they used to do their big old thing and they would reveal information and interviews and all that stuff. And so that's basically what they did. They recreated Paley Fest, but it's called My Roanoke Nightmare Special, which is a show that supposedly took place between the two shows, before My Roanoke Nightmare Return to Roanoke, and that was all sets of cast were there, the real people and the cast.
Can we point out real quick where Cuba grabs Sarah's ass and he tried to make it like, haha, it's funny. And then we see all the Cuba Gooding Jr. accusations from women after the Me Too movement started. So he really was a dickhead and a sleazeball in real life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting about this show, well, first off, as a side note, Trixie Mattel and her co-host did as the interviewers. And that's because Trixie had a AHS review show during Hotel. They reviewed all of Hotel, and so Ryan brought them on, which was really cool. So RuPaul tie-in. But anyway, so what I wish would have happened after rewatching this again is that the Paley Fest show would have aired for us in between both of them, because it is so brilliantly done with all the side looks and the little story nuances that go all the way through it. If you put it on mute and you watch all the little side looks and everything, it's amazing. You know, you see Lori and Sarah's interaction. You see the whole Matt, Dominic, Shelby thing. It's there. It's all in their eyes. It's all in their reactions to certain words. It's really neat. It's really, really well crafted. And it would have been a good surprise had we not already known all their stories and what was happening. So just kudos to that. But basically, it's a big interview show, big flashy. Ratings are great. You get interviews by some of the fans, and the fans learning after the second show. They interview them again, and they talk about how the second show was terrible and people died, and you're like, oh my god. And then you get Lot Polk being interviewed, and he's out for revenge, and they're like, well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So, it goes into the very, very next segment is the Lana Winter show. So it goes right into Lot Polk.
So now we get Sarah Paulson's third character in this series.
And this is the first time we saw Sarah back as Lana Winters. And it was neat. It's very Barbara Walters special. She's going to interview Lee Harris to talk about, her survivor. And Lee only agreed to interview with Lana because of their light stories. You see several references to Asylum during this episode. And basically what happens, the big what the fuck moment, there's two in this episode. First off, she just does the whole interview, and it's very sincere and very, talk to me, blah, blah, blah. And then Lana just goes, where's your daughter? Just, what?
Yeah.
Where's your daughter?
Flat out.
Just like,
it was straight Lana. That's all it was. It was very Lana.
Yeah, very, very Lana. And right after that accusation, then all of a sudden Lot Polk comes busting in the door with an automatic rifle and starts shooting up the place. And we're like, whoa, so then Lana.
Which is weird because it was like Asylum all over again with the Johnny thing.
Yeah, exactly. The reaction was different. She didn't get the reaction she wanted, because the next what the fuck moment was when she tried to talk Lot down. You thought it was going to work, just like Johnny. And then all of a sudden, Lot knocks the fuck out of her. He just boom, knocks her to the ground. And you're like,
but at least he didn't shoot her, because now we get to see Lana later.
Yeah, I thought they were going to.
But it's like, dude, did you just break her jaw? Because
exactly.
damn.
And she was older at this time. She's much older right now.
Yeah.
She's very much older. So then we got the cops break in, and they shoot lockdown, and Lee survives again. So then we have a courtroom style. Oh wait, we did the courtroom style thing before Lana or after? Anyway, we had a courtroom drama, like a TMZ-esque courtroom style kind of.
They did the cracked one first.
Okay, cracked.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
The courtroom drama was before cracked.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Either way, we digress.
There's like a TMZ, which is we're talking about cracked. Yeah, there's like a TMZ style courtroom. So it goes over the case, and it's basically like all the sensationalized news, the Inquirer type stuff. Oh my God, here's the drama. It goes through like several different interviews and stuff. Basically, what we find out in this is that this is where we find out that they're trying to frame, or they're trying to pin the murder of Mason on Lee. We find out that her daughter testifies against her and won't talk to her anymore, and that this is where we believe as an audience now she really did it, because Flora explains how she saw them with Lee hitting him with a rock and everything. And so now we know that the butcher of them stringed him up and burned him, but he was already dead because Lee killed him with the rock and whatever.
Yeah.
So we know that Flora and Lee have no relationship now at this point. That they're gone.
Because her confession came out.
Yeah. We go to a bunch of news clips, but because in Lana says, "Where's your daughter? Where's your daughter, Lee? You've got her." And then the whole thing, a lot happens. And then we go to a bunch of news clips. One news clip after another, all different networks and breaking news and everything. And in this, we see, a couple little additions. We see that not all of the cast members were asked to come back for different reasons. Dennis O'Hare's character, he's being interviewed on breaking news, and he says, "Well, I was asked to come back. I want that on record," as in he wasn't asked to come back. He's like, and I wouldn't go for specific reasons. And then we find out that Leslie Jordan a little bit later wasn't asked to come back. So the producers were really strict on who was to come back as far as the actors were.
Right, as far as who they wanted back and who they didn't.
Yeah, so at least like, why is that? They never explain why on each of them, but it was interesting. So after that, we find out in these little news clips, these breaking news clips, that the Roanoke house is under siege, that Flora has gone missing, and that they suspect that Lee is there. And so then we have Cracked in the middle of this. Cracked is the TMZ, the Inquirer type show, and it was showing that Lee they had gone to the Roanoke house. The Roanoke house was under siege, right? And basically there was a spirit chaser show that was right before, that was like those stupid ghost hunter shows that were all on. These three kids were going to go into the house and they were going to film the ghost. And while this show was going on, the spirits, of course, come. Leslie Jordan's character is there. He's the celebrity guest star and taking him through. Lee is in the house during this show. So then when we get to the news shows, we find out that Lee is still held up in the house and all those people had died. The butcher and them came in and killed all those people. We're like, fuck. And Lee's there alone with Flora. We know that Flora's in the house. We have the infrared things. And once we get to these news clips and that's done, what I found most interesting, and I don't know if you guys picked this up, then we get the first and only 5 minutes of American Horror Story.
Yeah.
There's no fake show at all at this time. The whole cinematography changes. The whole landscape changes.
Yeah.
The
it's suddenly like we're watching a TV show, not a reality show.
Exactly. Yeah. To the high def, real expensive, a la American Horror Story. And I'm like, well, that's our show. Now we're watching our show play out. And it plays out basically with what Lee is going to do. And in the end, Lee sacrifices herself to stay with Priscilla because that's all Flora wanted. And Flora,
right, because we find out that Priscilla was a tortured soul and she was killed by the butcher. And
yeah.
Yep.
He just didn't want people to get hurt. Priscilla was trying to protect people.
Right. It was about the relationship between Flora and Priscilla and the relationship between Lee and Flora. That's what this whole show came down to be. And I think that was Ryan's way of telling us what his true intentions with this whole mess was, by giving us American Horror Story at the end.
Well, and this is where we see Lee burns the house down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This real cinematic event in the end. It was really neat. Really, really neat. Well, very well crafted. Fun episode. And that's it.
That about wraps it up.
Yep.
So now I can turn my camera back on. Sorry, my battery was going to die. I had to turn it off. So with that being said, we have brought you guys the biggest WTF moments from Return to Roanoke, and then a little bit of our American Horror Story at the end, like Mike said.
Yep.
Episode 6 through 10. WTF Moments Part 2, episode 6 through 10. We hope you guys have enjoyed it. We've loved bringing it to you, and we will be back soon with more. If you guys liked it, please hit that thumbs up button. If you guys haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe and hit the little notification bell, because we upload all the time and you want to know when we upload or go live. Remember
one.
in the description below, we also have a link to the Trevor Project, which is our charity that we are collecting donations for, which goes straight to the Trevor Project. The link to that is in the description. And just hold on a second, B. Jeez. And then with that being said, we have our wand of the day.
Don't forget late night stream tomorrow for Hamilton. And we got the wand of the day is very special to our cast here. Dawn, this is your wand. This is the Hazel wand. This is your dates, which is August 5th through September 1st.
Nice.
And this is the original one. Wait, this one is the original one. The one with the little knob on it. Before it was changed. And the reason why this one was changed is two reasons. They got rid of this wiggle waggle. I guess it was too hard to produce. It kept breaking. And this little knob on the end of it kept breaking off. And I'll tell you about this knob when we go off the air. And then, so this is the new one, which replaced it. It's a wiggle waggle handle, but just like a straight. Because they couldn't do the interactive things with the curved handles. They couldn't put that technology in there to make
code word.
So that's the one today. That's Juan's birthday once, and it happens to be my polymer wood. Hazel, there you go.
So we love you. We love you for being here. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Oh God, Harry. Harry, no, Harry. Oh God, the split.